My mother-in-law is a time traveler, and she is unlike any other mother-in-law in the capital. She never pressures me to have children, nor does she allow my husband to take concubines, because my father-in-law promised her a lifetime of devotion to just one person. She also wants me to have a happy marriage. That day, her eyes red, she wiped away tears. Your father-in-law brought home a woman. My heart ached. My husband also brought home a woman. Mother-in-law angrily slapped the table. Old and young, none of them are decent. Dirty cucumbers aren't worth keeping. I nodded along. I'll listen to you, mother. After plundering the gold and treasures, we set fire to the place and escaped under the guise of death. 3 years later, my father-in-law and husband blocked us at the door, while a pair of children shouted up at them, "Don't bully our mother." My father-in-law's face changed. "You gave birth to a daughter for me." Everyone says that a woman's life has 2 opportunities to change her fate. First is reincarnation, second is marriage. Heaven has been kind to me, and I have firmly grasped both of these opportunities. Not only was I born into wealth, but I married even better because my mother-in-law is a time traveler, and she and my father-in-law are deeply in love, a couple for life. My own marriage is happy, and my mother-in-law is especially kind to me. You're still young, no need to rush into having children. Take good care of your health first. While other mothers-in-law are urging their daughters-in-law to have children, mine tells me not to worry about it yet. Not only that, she also forbids my husband from taking concubines. He has been truly good to me, but on this day, my mother-in-law rushed into my room with reddened eyes. "Nienwei, your father-in-law has brought a woman home." As soon as she finished speaking, her tears began to fall. "That woman is delicate and gentle, with a soft and considerate demeanor. She looks exactly like a scheming, manipulative type. Tell me, is this the kind of woman your father-in-law likes? He must have long grown tired of my bold and straightforward personality." My heart ached, and tears began to flow as well. My mother-in-law wiped her tears and said, "You don't have to pity me. At my age, I've seen all kinds of storms and hardships, but my mother-in-law was only in her 30s, having lived a smooth and untroubled life. How could she have weathered any storms?" Yet my tears were not for her, but for myself. "Mother, my husband has also brought back a woman." I sobbed, finally having someone to confide in about the words that had been weighing on my heart all these days. "She's in the villa, and he thought I didn't know all along." My mother-in-law slammed the table abruptly. "What? How long has this been going on? I didn't even know about it." "It's been a while. He goes to the villa to see that woman every day. When I ask, he says he's out discussing matters with his classmates, trying to fool me." I clutched the handkerchief soaked with tears, my heart aching. "I've been in his household for years, yet I haven't given him a child. Perhaps he is anxious in his heart." My mother-in-law was so angry that she paced around the room. "Not having a child has nothing to do with you. It was my decision. You're still young, and bearing a child too early would harm your health. What is he in such a hurry for?" I see it as nothing but an excuse for them to transfer their affections elsewhere. Useless men, rotten cucumbers, they're not worth it. "Good child, don't cry. If they turn to others, why should we be sad?" I sniffled. "But they are my husbands. Since I was young, my family taught me to regard my husband as the sky. What else could I do? Today, I'll show you that women hold up half the sky." My mother-in-law snorted coldly. "Those who are unfaithful deserve to swallow 10,000 needles." Just as she finished scolding, the maid announced that Lu Anxing had returned. "Husband," I called out to him, lowering my head. Lu Anxing's expression was stern as he frowned at the scene inside the room. "Why does mother look so angry?" My heart tightened. He wouldn't think I had upset his mother, would he? "What tone is that?" my mother-in-law asked him, her face dark. "Is this how you usually speak to Nienwei?" Lu Anxing's thin lips pressed together slightly. "I know my mistake. Where have you been?" His mother looked at him coldly. "Didn't your father go out with you? Has he returned too?" "There is a banquet at the palace. The emperor kept father for a conversation, so I came back first to change clothes and prepare for the banquet." Hearing this, I quickly called for the maidservants. As banquets at the palace usually require the attendance of family members, my mother-in-law also took a deep breath, preparing to go back and change clothes. "You don't need to prepare. This palace banquet, "You're not invited." My heart sank, and my mother-in-law glanced at the maid, signaling her. Lu Anxing hurried out, and the maid silently followed behind. Time passed minute by minute, and after half an incense stick's worth of time, the maid ran back, drenched in sweat. I followed the young master all the way. He first met with another lord, and later went to the side courtyard. He took a beautiful woman and got into the carriage. That lord even called out to that woman. The maid dared not speak. What did he call out? I asked calmly. The maid took a deep breath, her face showing reluctance. He called out, "Little sister-in-law," too, as expected. I forced a bitter smile. He doesn't even hide his relationship with that woman in front of his peers. He even calls her little sister-in-law. She's the little sister-in-law. And I'm the big wife, I suppose. Taking her to the palace banquet today is likely to make their relationship official in front of the emperor. My mother-in-law looked displeased. They're afraid I won't agree, so they're planning to have the emperor speak up. Such absurd behavior. And your father-in-law is actually helping to cover it up, of course. He wants to take a concubine himself. Father and son are birds of a feather. I sat to the side, utterly disheartened. He once said he liked me best for being lively and sincere, and disliked women who were overly affected. My mother-in-law's voice drifted faintly. Who would have thought that now he would bring home a woman as gentle as water? Perhaps when men reach a certain age, they all appreciate a confidant, an admirer. I hastily lowered my head and wiped away the tears that had fallen. I wanted to console my mother-in-law, but am I not just as pitiful myself? The beautiful love story of my father-in-law and mother-in-law once spread throughout the capital. Who in the capital didn't know that Duke Rong, Lu Wenyun, publicly promised his wife Ju Yunlan a lifetime of devotion to only her throughout their many years of marriage? He never once argued with his wife. Such a loving family atmosphere made noble ladies in the capital break their heads trying to marry into it. I never expected it would be me who got the bargain. When my mother first told me that the Duke's household had come to propose marriage to me, I thought I was dreaming. Lu Anxing, the heir of the Duke of Rong, is a handsome and refined gentleman. Most importantly, he is clean living and free from the influence of other women, making him an excellent choice for a husband. How could he possibly have taken a liking to me after I married into the family? My mother-in-law was kind and loving, and my husband was considerate and gentle, truly making me feel like I had fallen into a nest of happiness. But no one could have foreseen, a man's heart is easily swayed, just a fleeting moment. My husband has taken a woman to live in the side courtyard. Even my father-in-law has brought back a woman. Truly father and son, when loyal, we are loyal together. When unfaithful, we are also remarkably in sync. If a man has already strayed, forcing him is useless. Mother-in-law closed her eyes. Compromising and enduring will only cause your own boundaries to retreat again and again. We will endure until a certain point, then we will resent enough to hate, and hate until the end. We become someone we no longer recognize. The more my mother-in-law spoke, the sadder I felt inside. I have seen far too many women like this. I have also seen my own mother sitting by the bed, silently shedding tears, crying for the father's cruelty and the concubine's arrogance. Ah Wei, you are fortunate. You must never live the life your mother has. Before my marriage, my mother held my hand and advised, "You must live well with your husband." I wanted to live well with Lu Anxing, but now, how can I continue to live with him? Just thinking about it, I will have to repeat my mother's old path in the future, with wives and concubines fighting. Feeling heartbroken and sad, I couldn't help but shiver. If you are heartless, I will let go. My mother-in-law took a deep breath, her words firm and resolute. They would never agree to a divorce, and a lawsuit would take too long. Let's just run away together. I stared at my mother-in-law, dumbfounded. I'll do whatever mother says. All the property in the household has been in my hands all these years. My mother-in-law carefully counted her assets with me. I'll pack up the banknotes and gold and silver these next few days. You should also take stock of your dowry. Even if we run away, we still have to live well. I nodded quickly. My mother-in-law always had a plan, and following her advice was always right. I was thinking, running away in the usual way is never safe. If we're going to cut ties, we might as well do it completely. Let's fake our deaths. My mother-in-law was filled with determination, rubbing her hands together. Every blade of grass and every tree in this mansion has been adorned with my heart and soul. If I leave them behind, it would only benefit those vixens. It truly fits the saying, letting those vixens sleep with my man, sleep in my bed. What a beautiful dream. An image instantly flashed through my mind. Lu Anxing and another woman intimately entwined on the bed I once slept in. I immediately felt a wave of disgust. Mother is right, absolutely not. What should we do then? The gold and silver notes can be taken away. But how can the house be taken away? The mother-in-law clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. If it can't be taken away, then destroy it. We can't let that seductress get any advantage. Burn it. 3. The items were packed up quickly. All these years, my dowry has remained untouched, and everything from food to clothing was provided by the estate and the jewelry Lu Anxing bought for me. I looked at the table filled with gold and agate, feeling a pang of melancholy. These pieces of jewelry were all designed by him personally and crafted for me by skilled artisans. My wife is so beautiful. I fear I cannot do justice to even a fraction of your beauty. He never hesitated to praise me, as if I were a goddess in his eyes. But I am just an ordinary woman. Now that I no longer have my husband's love, how can I deserve these ornaments? Lu Anxing did not return home all night. The next morning, I saw my mother-in-law in a state of disarray. Mother, what's wrong with you? I quickly pulled her to sit down. My mother-in-law is a very vibrant person, even when she was angry yesterday. She wasn't this absent-minded. Your father-in-law didn't come home all night. Her voice trembled. He has never stayed out all night before. I couldn't help but choke up. Lu Anxing also didn't come back all night. We looked at each other in silence, tears streaming down our faces. They took their mistresses to the banquet and didn't return all night. No need to think. I already know where I'll be staying. Have you packed everything? After a long while, my mother-in-law said hoarsely, if you're leaving, it has to be as soon as possible. Every extra day you stay is another day of heartache. I forced a smile. It's all packed. Perhaps knowing that staying out all night would be hard to explain, Lu Anxing specially brought me a gift. Wife, this is a piece of jewelry I personally designed for you. Do you like it? He smiled warmly as he handed me a jade hairpin. I remained silent, inserting the jade hairpin into my bun. So beautiful. He pulled me into his embrace, lowering his head to kiss my neck. In my mind, however, I kept seeing him holding another woman. Where am I beautiful? I interrupted him for the first time while he was in the throes of passion. I am clearly just an ordinary woman. If there were other women who were beautiful and gentle, would my husband also like them? Lu Anxing was taken aback. My heart belongs only to my wife. What do other women have to do with me? Lying, watching him lie without changing his expression, I felt nothing but sorrow in my heart, a bit nauseous. And Xing, why did you marry me back then? I voiced the question that had been lingering in my heart. Why did you choose me in particular? Lu Anxing kissed my forehead, pulling me into the tent. Naturally, it's a match made by heaven, a night of intimacy, touched by a filthy man. The next morning, thinking about it, I felt sick to my stomach. Lu Anxing got up and rushed out again. Not long after, my mother-in-law came to find me. Tonight is the perfect opportunity. My father-in-law and Lu Anxing were being secretive, and tonight they wouldn't be returning to the mansion this time. They were quite considerate, informing us in advance and reassuring us. Peace of mind. They think we know nothing. The mother-in-law spat out. He didn't come home the night before last, slept with some random woman, came back last night to sleep with us, and tonight he's off to the random woman again, running back and forth like this, going to such lengths. Isn't he afraid of exhausting himself to death? The dark night with strong winds is perfect for setting fires. My mother-in-law and I exchanged a knowing smile, then tossed the fire starters we were holding down. We had already splashed tung oil in the corner of the bedroom. In the next second, the flames roared up. No, it's on fire, with the servants' shout. The entire Duke's mansion fell into chaos. My mother-in-law and I, dressed in black night clothes, took advantage of the pitch-dark night to escape from the mansion. We jogged all the way, heading towards the dock in the east of the city. Mother, where do we go next? To Yangju. My mother-in-law clapped her hands and laughed heartily. Sneaking around with women behind my back, I'll burn your house to the ground. Damn, that feels good, seeing my mother-in-law so happy. My previously low spirits also lifted with joy. Youngju is great. My eyes lit up. I've heard Youngju has many skinny horses, not just female ones, but male ones too, for the fire at the Duke's mansion. That night was so immense that it lit up half the sky of the capital. What we didn't know was that on that same night, the Duke of Rong and his son, along with 2 female spies, launched a surprise attack on the rebel prince's residence. The rebel prince, cornered, rose up in battle. This night of heart-stopping action finally saw all the rebel conspirators captured. While the 2 were reporting to the emperor in the palace, they were shocked to hear of a fire at the Duke's residence. The fire is too intense. The 2 wives of the Duke's residence couldn't escape. The commander of the capital's garrison had a mournful face. This subordinate, truly powerless, the Duke of Rong and his son were stunned by the towering flames and ran out of the palace like madmen. When we rushed back to the mansion, we found our personal maid kneeling at the gate, wailing to the heavens. It is said that the father and son rushed into the fire without regard for their own safety, but they found nothing. In such a massive fire, there would be no remains left. I don't know who said it. The fire burned all night, and Lu Anxing found a jade hairpin in the location of the bedroom, the jewelry my husband designed for me. I will wear it every day and never take it off. My former smiling face appeared before my eyes. Lu Anxing's head was ringing, and with a puh, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Duke Lu Wenyun was even searching desperately among the ruins, trying to find any trace of his wife. Yunlan, Yunlan, he shouted towards the burned-to-ashes Duke's mansion, utterly heartbroken. Neither my mother-in-law nor I knew about the aftermath that occurred in the capital. We are now facing new problems. We hid at the dock and, as the sky began to lighten, boarded a boat heading south. The scenery in my imagination was breathtaking, but who would have thought we would get seasick the whole way? We were nauseous and vomiting, feeling absolutely miserable. We couldn't even think about the scenery anymore. Going from frugality to luxury is easy, but going from luxury to frugality is hard. My mother-in-law sighed, leaning against the headboard. We should have brought the maids along. I feel ashamed in my heart and struggle to stand up. Mother, let me take care of you. You should rest. Your complexion is worse than mine. My mother-in-law waves her hand. Let's both rest. We'll be fine soon. Resting doesn't help. Seeing our complexions growing paler, the boatman became increasingly worried. Why not find a doctor to take a look? If something were to happen on his boat, the boatman couldn't bear the responsibility. Seeing my weak complexion, my mother-in-law gritted her teeth. All right, since we've come this far anyway, there's no need to worry about exposing our whereabouts anymore. The traveling doctor on the ship carefully took my pulse, his gaze sweeping over me and my mother-in-law. I'm not sure about the relationship between the 2 of you. This is my daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law nodded. Please speak freely. Doctor, congratulations. Madam, your daughter-in-law is pregnant. Hearing it was a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, the doctor immediately relaxed. Pregnant? I exclaimed in surprise. I'm pregnant, yes, the doctor said with a smile, stroking his beard. From your attire, I thought you were an unmarried woman, so I hesitated earlier. Since it's between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, it's naturally a joyous occasion. I was shocked, touching my stomach, never expecting that I was pregnant. The doctor over there had already taken my mother-in-law's pulse. His expression was strange, as if he couldn't believe it, checking the left pulse and then the right. Is there something wrong with my mother-in-law? Seeing his silence, I grew anxious inside. The doctor remained silent, stroking his beard so much that several hairs came loose. Please, speak quickly. I was so anxious that I kept pacing around. Congratulations, madam. The doctor stood up and bowed to me. I know I'm pregnant. You don't need to congratulate me. How is my mother-in-law? My mother-in-law's face was pale, full of worry. Congratulations, madam. Your mother-in-law is also pregnant. A silence filled the room. I'm pregnant too. The mother-in-law exclaimed in shock. At my age, that's not quite right. The doctor corrected. Madam, you're not yet 40, and your constitution is quite strong. What's so surprising about being pregnant? The doctor chuckled, prescribed a few doses of herbal medicine for pregnancy. And left with a flourish, we each placed a hand on our stomachs, looking at each other in silence. 5. Originally, we had planned for 2 wealthy women to travel to Yeongju with our vast fortunes. We would find a few young men to ride to indulge in the pleasures of wine, pools, and abundant meat. Never expected to be pregnant just before leaving. The male horse can't be ridden for the time being. My mother-in-law and I got off the boat halfway and stayed in a remote town to nurture the pregnancy. It's not bad, having a child, at least we'll have someone to rely on in the latter half of our lives. Mother-in-law patted her stomach. My big account is gone. I'm starting a small account to raise again. I don't understand what she means by big account or small account. All I know is that I finally have a child. We pretended to be a pair of widow mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, bought a house and hired servants. It's said that a widow's doorstep is full of gossip, and 2 widows' doorsteps have even more. Fortunately, we are well off financially, and life behind closed doors is carefree. Pregnancy is indeed difficult for a woman, and as the due date approaches, we are all thoroughly exhausted. I'm an older mother, and you're a first-time mother with no experience. When my mother-in-law was feeling unwell, she shared her knowledge about childbirth with me. Don't be afraid. Everything will go smoothly. Damn it, those 2 dead men. They fell in love with someone else and even made us have children for them. When things didn't go smoothly, my mother-in-law would shout out my father-in-law's name and curse him. After cursing the father-in-law, she would curse the son, and I laughed until tears streamed down my face. 10 months of pregnancy, 1 day of labor. My mother-in-law gave birth to a daughter, and I gave birth to a son. These 2 children, born after all our hardships, should carry our family names. With a wave of her hand, my mother-in-law declared, my daughter will be surnamed Ju Shin. Tearfully holding my son, I said, then my son will be surnamed Shin Sheng, newborn. From now on, we begin a new life. As time passed day by day, the children grew bigger and bigger. Shin Jie's eyes and eyebrows looked exactly like her mother-in-law's, and she had a lively and adorable personality. Sheng Jie looks very much like Luanxing. I have lost myself in those eyes more than once. It's all in the past. My mother-in-law said, holding my hand, children are always innocent. I nodded. Although I am heartbroken and disappointed with Luanxing, the child is my flesh and blood, and I will love him deeply. When the 2 children turned 2, we finally decided to move to Yeongju. It's remote here, and there are no good teachers. We'll send them to school in Yeongju, my mother-in-law said. We can't skimp on education. We must move. I wholeheartedly agreed. Mother is right. After going to Yeongju, let's also see. My mother-in-law was full of smiles, and I whispered with my hand over my mouth, male thin horses, a perfect match, and we immediately took action. We moved quickly, and within half a month, we arrived in Yeongju. The scenery of Yeongju is truly magnificent, with beautiful waters and lovely people. My mother-in-law and I sat on the flower boat, while the singing girl smiled and sang a cheerful tune. Even the life of an immortal could hardly surpass this. The girls on the flower boat liked us very much, as we were generous and not as rude or offensive as men. Just singing a few tunes and chatting with the sisters can earn you tips. Who wouldn't like such customers? While we were indulging in pleasure in Yeongju, we had no idea that the small village we once lived in was in an uproar. The entire village was called out, and everyone was questioned one by one. The guards surrounded our long-abandoned residence. 2 tall figures stood before the house. To Yeongju. The younger man asked, to buy horses. Hearing that they are going to buy horses, a villager raised his hand to reply, they say they want to buy a stallion, and one that's on the lean side. Those widows spend money like water, so I guess they don't have much left. Maybe, lean horses are cheaper. Luanxing frowned, a vague sense of unease creeping over him. I know, I overheard it that day. They're going to buy male thin horses. A tender child's voice rang out. Crack. The horsewhip in my father-in-law's hand was instantly crushed. 6. Having witnessed the grace of the female shouma, my mother-in-law and I decided to see the male shouma as well. Nianwei, kissing and touching is fine, but you mustn't take things too far. Before leaving, my mother-in-law specifically reminded me, be careful not to catch any dirty diseases. There are no antibiotics these days, and such illnesses are hard to treat. Although I didn't understand what antibiotics were, I knew my Mother-in-law was always right. After giving birth, I followed my mother-in-law's advice and did some Kegel exercises, which helped my body recover exceptionally well. My mother-in-law said that her hometown is developed, so she knows a lot of things that I don't. I just need to follow and learn. Mother, don't worry. I nodded solemnly. Good, Mother will look for you. If there's someone who hasn't entertained guests yet and has a clean background, it's also possible to consider letting them stay. Overnight, the mother-in-law smiled and took out the prepared gold and silver. Let's go, Tilda, let's go. I followed her enthusiastically, entering the renowned Qingfeng Pavilion. Gentlemen, attend to our guests. Tilda, at the madam's command, the handsome young men gathered around in unison, with my mother-in-law and me both being beautiful and generous. The gentlemen vied with each other to serve us. The mother-in-law had a gentleman on each side, her hands roaming freely as she drank one cup after another. I too nestled in the arms of one gentleman, eating grapes that another gentleman had personally peeled for me. Sister, is it sweet? The young gentleman's face was slightly flushed, and my heart fluttered. Sweet, a reward. After saying this, he threw a handful of gold beans into the air. Everyone is rewarded. The gentlemen all cheered in unison, urging me to drink cup after cup in the haze of wine. I moved from one embrace to another. Why do you smell of cedar? I stood up, feeling dizzy. Who told you to burn cedar incense? Is burning cedar incense not good? Don't you like it? In a daze, someone asked me, and suddenly my heart felt tender and sore, my eyes slightly reddening. Not good. In the past, Lu Xing'an loved burning cedar incense the most. His embrace always carried a faint scent of cedar. Men who use cedarwood incense are all heartless. You're not allowed to use it anymore. I was completely drunk, struggling to open my eyes to see his face. Don't move. Let me see what you look like. I wobbled as I cupped his face. Hey, you don't just like the same incense as heartless men, you even look like one. I leaned in close to his face and placed a kiss on his lips. Have you ever taken clients before? No. Then, are you clean? I always keep my mother-in-law's instructions in mind. If I want to bring someone back, she must be someone who has never taken clients and is clean. Clean. His voice was low, and I laughed before kissing him again. If you're clean, come home with me. A battle between spirits, quite exhausting. It had been a long time since I last sparred with someone, and I quickly fell lying in bed. I let the man do as he pleased. Do whatever you want. I was like the jianbing guozi my mother-in-law made for me, flipped over and over again. When I woke up the next day, my head was splitting with pain, whether from the drunkenness or the exhaustion, I couldn't tell. Last night, that gentleman said he had never taken a client before, but my experience was quite satisfying. Since you've followed me, I naturally won't mistreat you. I recalled the words spoken by those dissolute men in the picture books. I've taken your innocence, so I naturally will take responsibility for you. Before he could finish, the gentleman who was facing away from me let out a cold snort. I suddenly felt a chill run down my spine, a bad premonition. How do you intend to take responsibility? A familiar voice rang out, and the gentleman turned his body, his magnified face appearing before my eyes. Lu Anxing glared at me with fury. I let out a startled cry and jumped up from the bed in fright. How is it you? 7. The familiar scent of incense, the similar face, the scenes of last night's debauchery flashed through my mind. How could I have ever imagined that last night's groom was Lu Anxing? I felt a bit guilty and went out to look for a thin horse, only to find that the thin horse was my husband. Even a romance novel wouldn't dare to write it this way, but seeing Lu Anxing's furious face, I suddenly didn't feel guilty anymore. If he can keep a concubine, why can't I look for a thin horse? Besides, his wife is already dead, and I am now free. Since it's you, then there's no need to take responsibility. I got up and dressed, my fingers trembling from exhaustion. Why don't you need to take responsibility for me? Lu Anxing snorted coldly, stood up, and helped me tie the sash of my clothes. Was I not good at serving you last night? My face turned red. You lied. You're not clean at all. Lu Anxing's expression changed. How am I not clean? I haven't even mentioned how you're surrounded by people on both sides, yet you're accusing me of being unclean. You're keeping a mistress, Mother said. Men who keep mistresses are all filthy. As soon as the words were spoken, Lu Anxing's face turned deathly pale. So you faked your death and ran away, is that it? His voice was low, filled with pain. Why? Do you know how father and I felt when we saw that fire and heard you had died? A fire at the Duke's mansion claimed the lives of 2 wives. The people of the capital sighed, lamenting our fragile beauty and short lives. Yet he and his father did not believe I had perished. Everyone said our remains were completely incinerated. No matter how much a body is burned, it's impossible for it to be completely reduced to nothing, Lu Anxing said with a self-deprecating smile. My father and I both suspect you escaped, but we don't understand why you would run. Later, I found your hairpin among the ashes. He pulled out a lustrous jade hairpin from his sleeve. This is the only thing you left for me. I gave you so many pieces of jewelry, yet I only found this one. I think you left it on purpose. Looking at the familiar hairpin, the heartache I once felt resurfaced. Yes, all the jewelry he designed for me during those passionate times, I took with me. I can't bear to part with it, but this hairpin, it was given to me after he had another woman. I don't care for it. Why? Lu Anxing's eyes were bloodshot. Nianwei, why would you go this far? They were certain we were still alive, and the next step was to carefully investigate, eventually tracing the leads to the docks. Coincidentally, that day there were 16 pairs of mothers and daughters, as well as mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law, departing from the docks. 6 pairs headed north, 6 pairs headed south, and 4 pairs went west. They dispatched men to investigate, taking considerable time, and ultimately narrowed it down to the 6 pairs heading south. In 3 years, their people scoured the entire Jiangnan region but couldn't find any trace of us. Later, following a lead, they captured a traveling doctor and learned that a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law from the north had disembarked midway to give birth. Lu Anxing suddenly understood. No wonder they couldn't find any trace of us. If I hide in an unknown mountain village and never step outside, how could anyone possibly find out? He took leave from his father-in-law and searched village by village along the riverside towns. Finally, he heard about the village where we had lived for 3 years. By the time we arrived there, you had already left. The villagers say you're here in Yangju to buy male thin horses. Lu Anxing gritted his teeth. Do you know how furious I was when I heard this news? He rode 2 horses to death, fearing that if he arrived even a moment later, you would already be riding on the back of a male thin horse. 8. What's the point of saying all this now? I flounced out the door, not wanting to hear his heartfelt confession. It was mainly embarrassing to hear him describe the scene of me looking for a male courtesan. I hadn't walked far when I saw my mother-in-law rushing into my courtyard. Her hair was disheveled, and her neck bore deep and shallow love bites, clearly indicating she had been out fighting demons last night too. Don't come in, I quickly stopped her, afraid her son would see her like this. Let's run over there. I pointed to the west. There's a side gate left there, originally meant to be a dog hole. We haven't even gotten a dog yet, but we have to run first. Where do you think you're running to? 2 voices suddenly rang out from behind. We froze in place as my father-in-law and Lu Anxing approached with stern faces. Where do you think you're running off to? What business is it of yours where we run off to? My mother-in-law tossed her hair back. What? You 2 unfaithful men can break your promises, but we can't run away. Yes, I let out a cold laugh. Not only are we going to run, but we're also going to find new men. My father-in-law's face turned a deep shade of green as he slowly gathered my mother-in-law's hair and secured it with a hairpin. Yunlan, stop causing a scene. Let's talk things over properly at home. Still causing trouble with your daughter-in-law. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Laughed at? My mother-in-law sneered. If you're not afraid of being laughed at, why should I be? Lu Anxing stepped forward and took my hand. Nianwei, it's all a misunderstanding. It's a long story. Misunderstanding. I turned to look at him. Is it true that you've been keeping a woman in the side courtyard? Yes. Did you really bring her in and out of the palace? Yes. But, your colleagues, calling her little sister-in-law, is that true? I shouted out, almost in tears. Is it true? He stared at me intently, fists clenched tightly, and after a long pause, he spoke with difficulty. Yes, I struggled to suppress the hatred in my heart and forced a bitter smile. Go, I won't forgive you. My mother-in-law and father-in-law watched us in silence. Mother, Now that you and father have cleared up the misunderstanding, you can come back whenever you want. I gave a bleak smile. I won't go back. My mother-in-law rushed forward and grasped my hand. If you won't leave, then I won't either. Just as the atmosphere grew tense, the sound of a child's laughter drifted in from the courtyard gate. Mother, Shunga is awake. Mother, Shinna is awake too. 2 children stumbled in yesterday. My mother-in-law and I wanted to go see the thin horse. So we left the children with the servants and slept alone in a small courtyard on the other side of the garden. Seeing that both my mother-in-law and I had red eyes, and there were still tears in my eyes, 2 strangers, who didn't know each other, cornered us. Don't bully my mother. 2 little dumplings, taking small, wobbly steps, stumbled in front of Lu Anxing and his father-in-law. Bad guys, get out. The father-in-law's face changed, his eyes fixed on the girl whose features resembled his wife's so closely. Is this the daughter you gave me? Lu Anxing looked up in shock, his gaze drawn to the boy who bore a striking resemblance to him. Is this the son you gave me? We're having them for ourselves. My mother-in-law and I spoke in unison. It has nothing to do with you. After saying that, I forcefully pushed the 2 stunned individuals out of the side gate. Go away, you heartless man, and never come looking for us again. I slammed the door shut with a bang, refusing to look at their panicked faces outside the door. My father-in-law kicked Lu Anxing in the leg. You bastard. I told you to just play along, and you ended up with a little sister-in-law. You got me kicked out too. If you want your father to end up single, just say it straight. After scolding, he wasn't satisfied and kicked back twice more. Little sister-in-law. I'll call you little sister-in-law. 9. Ah Wei. I truly have nothing between me and that woman. It's already the 7th day. Lu Anxing crouched under my window, explaining the events of that year to me, 1 sentence at a time. The rebellious prince sought to stage a coup and specifically sent someone to seduce him and his father, so they decided to play along with the plan. The woman was a spy working for the rebellious prince, possessing a lot of information about him. The emperor ordered me and my father to investigate the rebellious prince's plot, and we were just short of the most crucial evidence, which would allow us to arrest that group of people all at once. I coaxed the child to sleep and sat inside the room, listening to him speak sentence by sentence. Father told me not to reveal any flaws, to avoid failure at the last moment. That's why I endured everything with that woman, but I never touched her, not even a little. The day I brought her to the palace was just for show, to deceive the rebels' accomplices. That little sister-in-law was also to confuse them. Daddy and I didn't dare return to the mansion those days, fearing the spy might change his mind and escape at the last moment. Only after the mission was successful did we imprison them. Seeing me unmoved, Lu Anxing felt a pang of sorrow and regret. Oh why, my heart belongs only to you, these years without you by my side. I've been sleepless every night, hating myself for hurting your heart. When I heard you gave birth alone outside, I was even more worried about your suffering. Filled with remorse, step by step, I walked to the window, looking at him just beyond the wall. Do you know, if the young man that night hadn't been you, but some other innocent gentleman, I might have agreed. Lu Anxing stood up and reached out to touch my cheek. I know, there was a sense of regret in his eyes. If you really, I don't blame you, it was my own fault. I hurt your heart and lost you, but I won't let go. I believe that one day you will forgive me. My heart was shaken to the core, never expecting he could go to such lengths for me. Why go to such trouble? I murmured to myself. Though I am your wife, I am no different from other noble ladies, just a wife for bearing children. Where couldn't he find a wife willing to marry him? You are my wife, but not an ordinary wife confined to the inner chambers. Lu Anxing smiled at me with tears in his eyes. You are the wife I deeply love. I once asked myself why I married you. Oh why, we are a match made in heaven. I stared at him in a daze. When I was young, I loved going to the estate in the Western Hills to relax. One summer, I met a little girl hiding under a tree, secretly eating a roasted sweet potato. My heart skipped a beat. Our family did indeed have an estate in the Western Hills. When I was a child, I wanted to eat roasted sweet potatoes. But my mother said they were coarse food for servants and that a proper young lady shouldn't eat such things, so I stole a sweet potato and hid behind a big tree to eat it. Back then, I was watching you from the tree. While you were down below sneaking snacks with the maid and venting your troubles, my throat tightened. I had never known about these things. From that year on, every summer, I would wait in that tree, and that girl would come to escape the heat year after year. She always played under that big tree. I watched her grow up year by year, developing more and more interests, and the more I looked at her, the more I liked her. Upon learning that you were about to come of age, I couldn't wait to have my parents arrange a marriage proposal, fearing that someone else might take you away. Lu Anxing had entered the room at some point without my notice. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into his embrace. It was fate that brought me to you, made me fall in love with you, and allowed me to marry you. I didn't realize when I was already in tears. No wonder the gifts he gave me after marriage touched my heart every time. So he had loved me silently for so many years. 10. Lu Anxing explained the misunderstanding clearly. Logically speaking, I should forgive him and accept him, but I can't quite explain why. There's still a knot of resentment in my heart. My mother-in-law's expression was also unpleasant. Even if you've cleared everything up, a new and serious problem has emerged. Mother-in-law looked at her father-in-law and Lu Anxing standing in the hall. Why didn't you tell us about such things earlier? In your hearts, we are just women of the inner chambers, lacking insight, and not worthy of respect at all. Yunlan, absolutely not. My father-in-law hastily shook his head. I respect you, I trust you, and you know that better than anyone. Lu Anxing also stepped forward, his expression earnest. Why? You know I didn't. Then why didn't you explain it to us in advance at the time? My mother-in-law sneered. Could it be that you thought we would ruin your grand plans? My heart suddenly cleared, and I finally understood where that faint anger had come from. If it were truly for the greater plan, such matters could have been discussed with me in advance. Why go through the trouble of causing all these misunderstandings and suffering afterward in the end? Lu Anxing simply doesn't trust me. This matter is of great importance, His Majesty has said. It must not be revealed to anyone. Lu Anxing couldn't help but retort. It's all the Emperor's fault. Nonsense. I don't believe it. You hiding under the covers. Do you think there are spies lifting your blankets? The mother-in-law grabbed a teacup from the table and threw it at Lu Anxing. Just whisper to your wife under the covers. I'm doing something important. Can't go into details. But remember, I've never betrayed you. Who could possibly know? Lu Anxing's head was covered in tea leaves and tea water dripped down his cheeks. He gaped, muttering to himself, can it be like this? Dad, why didn't you tell me about this move? His father-in-law looked shocked and bitter, saying, I didn't think of this move at the time either. Dad, it's all your fault. I listened to you and said nothing. And now look at the mess we're in. Lu Anxing complained angrily. You kept saying we had to act convincingly, that the Emperor had issued a secret decree. It almost cost me my family. I was just trying to help you achieve merit early and get an imperial title for your wife. His father-in-law glared. You insolent boy, how dare you talk to your father like that? Just as the two were about to come to blows, Sheng'er and Xinjie wobbled in. Your dad is really fierce. Your dad is pretty fierce too. The two little dumplings, sucking on sugar cubes, watched their fathers glaring at each other. Mother, this father is not good. Let's change to another father. As soon as the words left the children's mouths, the men, with angry faces, immediately changed their expressions. Father is good. We don't want to change father. Come, father will give you a hug. After that day, the house fell into an eerie balance. My mother-in-law and I never mentioned forgiveness. Yet Lu Anxing and my father-in-law settled down in the house every day. Aside from coaxing the child, they would humble themselves to please us. Don't you have official duties? Aren't you returning to the capital? I couldn't help but ask, what's the point of following us around all day? I've already taken leave from the Emperor. Lu Anxing smiled, holding the child. Father wrote the leave request himself, stating that he won't return to the capital without his wife. My father-in-law's memorial was straightforward and blunt, to help you with your affairs. My house burned down, my wife ran away, and my children no longer recognize their father. What do you think we should do about this, Your Majesty? After the fire at the Duke's residence, everyone saw how heartbroken the Duke and his son were. The Emperor rubbed his nose and waved his hand grandly. Leave granted. From now on, no matter how big or small the matter, I will discuss it with you first. Apart from you, I don't glance at any other women, nor do I listen to a single word from them." In the courtyard, my father-in-law was swearing to my mother-in-law again. My mother-in-law shoved the child into his arms and strode into the house, picking up a teacup and drinking it all in one go. "What do you have to say?" My mother-in-law nodded her chin at me. "I'll do whatever mother says," I quickly expressed. "Return to the capital." With a sweep of her hand, my mother-in-law declared, "Why would I give up a life of wealth and luxury? I'm not stupid." "Hey," I responded crisply. Father-in-law and Lu Anxing went off cheerfully to pack their belongings. "We've almost run out of money, and they've been behaving decently, so let's head back for now," mother-in-law whispered in my ear. "If they misbehave again in the future, we can always run away again." Suppressing the laughter in my heart, I nodded. "I'll do whatever mother says." After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My elder sister falsely claimed my credit and secured a marriage alliance with the newly top scholar, Xie Juan, by pretending to have saved his life. To prevent me from ruining her plans, my elder sister ordered someone to break my legs and locked me in the woodshed. On the day of her wedding, I crawled out of the woodshed and pleaded with Xie Juan for help, holding the token, but all I received was his indifference. At that moment, I realized that the so-called life-saving grace was far less valuable than the benefits brought by a marriage alliance with the legitimate daughter of the Grand Tutor. I was dragged to the backyard by the wicked servants, beaten to death with random sticks, and my body was sunk into a dry well. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Xie Juan was in danger. A masked man in black asked me if I had seen an injured man fleeing, and I immediately lifted the tattered mat where Xie Juan was hiding. "What a coincidence. The person you're looking for is right here." The man in black seemed not to have expected that Xie Juan would be so bold, daring to hide right under their noses instead of anywhere else. In a fit of rage and humiliation, he raised his sword and stabbed the unconscious Xie Juan more than a dozen times in a row. Taking advantage of the chaos, I quietly hid behind a large rock, clapping and cheering, wishing I could go up and add a few more stabs myself. All those strikes hit vital points, but having read too many storybooks in my past life, I feared he might survive against all odds. After the men in black left, I went up to check his breathing. Very well, more air is going out than coming in. It seems Xie Juan is done for this time. Xie Juan, you can forget about the glory of plucking the laurel from the Moon Palace and parading through the streets on horseback in this lifetime. You'll just be a lonely, wandering ghost in this nameless village. As I picked up my vegetable basket and turned to leave, I suddenly remembered the miserable experience from my past life when my legs were brutally broken. Dozens of blows landed on my legs, leaving them mangled and bloody, humiliating me into a cripple who could only crawl on the ground like a beggar. Why, I only meant to save someone out of kindness, so why must I endure such torment? And the one who reduced me to this state now lies at my feet. How could I not hate him? With that thought, I picked up a large stone from the ground and viciously smashed it dozens of times against Xie Juan's legs, not stopping until I heard the sound of bones shattering. Even if you were the reincarnation of the literary star from the heavens in this lifetime, you will still have to kneel before me as you cross the Niher Bridge in the underworld. I wiped the blood from my face, turned around, and bid farewell to the man who had brought me suffering in my previous life. The innocent and kind Su Jinyu from my past life had already died in the dried-up well of the Grand Tutor's residence. In this life, I only want to live for myself. I hurried back to the estate carrying a vegetable basket, and the maid who served me stared at my dress, her face filled with suspicion. "Weren't you supposed to be picking vegetables? Why is there blood on the hem of your skirt?" She claims to be my personal maid, but in reality, she was placed by my legitimate sister to keep an eye on me. After all, which family has a maid living in luxury while the young lady has to dig for expensive vegetables just to survive? In my previous life, my legitimate sister, in her pursuit of power and status, had already become involved with the emperor's younger brother, Prince An. As time went on, she secretly became pregnant with his child. She thought the position of princess consort was within easy reach, But Princeton, a notorious playboy who flitted from flower to flower without ever getting attached, refused to take responsibility. The father was furious that his legitimate eldest daughter had no sense of shame and had engaged in an affair with an outsider while still unmarried, yet, he could not bear to reprimand his beloved eldest daughter too harshly, so he had no choice but to swallow his pride and beg Princeton to send a marriage proposal. After all, his legitimate daughter's pregnancy could not wait. In just a few months, the child would be due, and using medicine to induce an abortion might harm her health. If she gave birth to the child, she would either have to take her own life to preserve her reputation or shave her head and spend the rest of her days in a temple. The final agreement was that Princeton would marry the legitimate daughter, but the grand tutor's household would have to provide another daughter to serve as Princeton's concubine. Since the legitimate daughter was pregnant and unable to attend to Princeton, it would be unreasonable to leave him alone in his bedchamber night after night. This arrangement was utterly humiliating. But with Princeton now holding leverage over the grand tutor's household, the father had no choice but to comply. That's why he remembered me, the illegitimate daughter who had been sent to a manor in the outskirts of the capital to be raised from an early age. To prevent me from finding out and running away, my legitimate sister kindly assigned a maid to serve me, ostensibly to take care of me, but in reality, to keep an eye on me. After all, my legitimate sister is a deeply jealous and cold-hearted person. Marrying into the Prince of Anne's household may seem like a bed of roses, but once she gives birth to a child, my life will be filled with endless storms and bloodshed. But I know that my legitimate sister's dream of becoming the princess consort is likely to shatter, because 3 days later in the previous life, Princeton encountered bandits during a hunt in the outskirts of the capital, fell off a cliff, and his body was never found. My legitimate sister and the child in her womb lost all hope. Fortunately, the marriage negotiations with Princeton had been conducted privately. Otherwise, as an unmarried woman, she would have been left to guard her widowhood. It was at this time that my legitimate sister discovered the token Xie had given me, which led to the idea of substituting one thing for another, finding a new top scholar as a father for the child in her womb. After all, Xie came from a humble background. If this matter were exposed in the future, the Grand Tutor's residence could still use its power to suppress the situation. It's just a pity that my life has become useless, and my legitimate sister, fearing I would expose this matter, developed the intention to harm me. Recalling the past, I smiled faintly and spoke calmly to the vigilant maid. Nothing much. I just encountered a wild dog that had been beaten to death on the road and got a little blood on me. Meeting Xie was indeed like encountering a wild dog. Moreover, the peril that Princeton encountered in his previous life was said to be at the hands of mountain bandits, but I knew there was more to the incident than met the eye. I had considered fleeing the capital to seek a livelihood elsewhere, but the journey was long and treacherous, far too daunting for a woman of my frailty. If I remained in the capital, the Grand Tutor's estate would surely tear me apart and drink my blood sooner or later. Since I had been given a second chance at life, the matter concerning Princeton could naturally be turned to my advantage, allowing me to carve a path out of this hopeless situation. 3 days later, at dawn, I used the excuse of gathering herbs and took a sickle from home. Before heading into the mountains on the way, I met my neighbor sister Luo Ying, who was also going to the mountains to gather herbs. I made an excuse, saying I didn't need many herbs and promised to share half with her later. Coaxing her into returning home. Once in the mountains, I found the spot where Princeton had encountered danger years ago and hid up in a tall tree. After years of rural life, although my body was strong, I knew nothing of martial arts and could only act according to the situation. Just as I had expected, moments later, 2 groups of people charged over. One group of people was dressed in Imperial Guard uniforms, while the other group wore black knight attire, making it impossible to tell their origins. The Imperial Guards, protecting a person with delicate features and luxurious clothing, retreated to the tree where I was hiding. The person they were guarding had already been struck by an arrow in the shoulder. A black-clad figure found an opening and was about to launch a surprise attack from behind. Just as that person was about to be stabbed, in the nick of time, I leaped down from the tree and, using the momentum, ended the black-clad figure with a single swing of my sickle. This was the first time I had killed someone. Although the other party was not a good person, it still left me feeling uneasy. However, given the chaotic situation, I had no choice but to feign composure. I descended from the sky, and the Imperial Guards were about to turn against me, but seeing that I had no ill intentions and was solely focused on protecting the man in splendid attire, they redirected their efforts to surround and attack the men in black. The Imperial Guards, well trained and disciplined, swiftly eliminated all the men in black within moments. As soon as the crisis was resolved, the leader of the Imperial Guards immediately knelt down and reported to the man in splendid attire, "Your Majesty, all the rebels have been eliminated. I have just taken account," and the leader among them was none other than Lord An. The man in fine clothes, clutching his wound, showed a pained expression on his face. After a moment, he spoke with deep sorrow. "This matter is of great importance. Make it look like the work of bandits and send the message back." After arranging everything, the man in fine clothes finally noticed me wiping the sickle and bowed to me in gratitude. "Today, I unfortunately encountered misfortune, but I was fortunate to be saved by you, Miss May. I ask your name and where you live. I would like to bring a proper gift to express my gratitude." I knew the man in the elegant attire was suspicious of my sudden appearance, but fortunately, I had already prepared an explanation. "I am Su Jinyu, the second daughter of the Grand Tutor's household, born of a concubine. I happened to witness injustice and felt compelled to intervene. It was merely a small matter, so there's no need to take it to heart. So you are the daughter of the Grand Tutor's household. May I ask why you have come to this remote and dense forest?" "Due to my unruly temperament, my father sent me to a manor in the outskirts of the capital to refine my character. The medicinal herbs at the estate are running low today, so I came into the mountains to gather some. I never expected to run into such a disaster." The well-dressed man repeatedly insisted on visiting to express his gratitude. I had no choice but to pretend to be hesitant and decline, saying, "It's really nothing significant. In a few days, my father will be taking me back to the residence. If you wish to show your appreciation, you may simply visit the Grand Tutor's residence in the capital." The response was perfectly reasonable. Although I am a daughter born of a concubine, I should not be tasked with such laborious work as gathering herbs in the mountains. However, the Grand Tutor's residence has never paid me any mind, and the estate manager has been tormenting me day after day, treating me like a servant. These matters can easily be uncovered with a little investigation, so I am not afraid of him looking into it. I already had an idea about this person's identity in my mind, but saying too much would seem deliberate, so after explaining the cause and effect, I left some hemostatic herbs behind and excused myself to gather more herbs. Only after walking far away did I finally let out a long sigh of relief. This move, I had gambled correctly. I knew all too well that the incident involving Prince's peril in my previous life was far from simple. Princeton was born to Consort Xie, a favored consort of the late emperor. Despite enjoying exclusive favor for many years, Consort Xie had no children. To secure her position, she adopted Xiao Yang, the current emperor, whose birth mother had passed away early, perhaps due to the current emperor's profound blessings. Within just 3 years of adopting Xiao Yang, Consort Xie became pregnant. Naturally, one's own son is more cherished than an adopted one. Fearing that Xiao Yang might overshadow her biological son's position, Consort Xie sent him back to the imperial prince's residence. It was the Empress Dowager who, taking pity on Xiao Yang's loneliness and hardship, brought him under her care once again. Consort Xie had hoped that the child in her womb would elevate her status through the son, but unfortunately, the late emperor contracted an illness during an early inspection of Jiangnan that never fully healed. He passed away before the child was even born. A nation cannot be without a ruler for even a day. Xiao Yang, being the eldest son and raised under the Empress Dowager's care, ascended the throne with her support. 3 months later, Consort Xie gave birth to a son, who would become prince, and Consort Xie was furious, convinced that Xiao Yang had stolen the throne that rightfully belonged to her son. Leveraging her 3 years of raising Xiao Yang, she stubbornly remained in the palace. refusing to retire to the imperial retreat for her later years in my previous life. When the Princevan encountered danger, I also thought it was an accident. Later, on the same day the Princevan was killed, my neighbor's elder sister Luo Ying went into the mountains to gather herbs and ended up being killed by a wild beast. When her body was brought back, she was still clutching a piece of bright yellow fabric in her hand. After the incident, the neighbor's family received gold from a distant relative and moved to the borderlands. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until I returned to the Grand Tutor's residence that I learned the pattern on that fabric was exclusively reserved for the Emperor's use and was strictly forbidden to anyone else, so I suspect that the danger to Prince An was a ruse, and seizing the throne was the real goal. It seems Consort Xie never gave up her ambition for the throne, but unfortunately, she made a grave mistake by ordering Prince An to secretly assassinate the current emperor. Unfortunately, by a twist of fate, Prince An himself died during the assassination attempt. The girl next door must have accidentally saved the emperor, which is why her family received a windfall after her death. This matter is a royal scandal, and the emperor covered it up by claiming that Prince An had encountered bandits. Now that returning to the Grand Tutor's residence is unavoidable, I must find a powerful ally for myself. Having lived in the outskirts of the capital for many years, I was familiar with the terrain and had prepared in advance. I was 90% confident that I could save His Majesty, so I wouldn't have to endure the disdainful looks from the people at the Grand Tutor's residence upon my return to the capital. As it turned out, my gamble paid off. Judging by the attitude of the Imperial Guard commander toward the man in splendid attire, he must be the current emperor, Xiao Yang, carrying the medicinal herbs down the mountain. I saw from afar the maid who was keeping an eye on me, peering anxiously at the mountain pass. When she spotted me, her face was filled with impatience. "What took you so long to come down? Someone from the residence has arrived to take you back." Only then did I realize that in my preoccupation with saving the emperor these past few days, I had completely forgotten that today was the day the manor was supposed to take me back. I hastily packed my belongings and left my years of savings with my neighbor, Sister Luo Ying. I had taken her opportunity. Although I indirectly saved her life, I also cost her the merit of rescuing the emperor. This money would serve as compensation. Having lived in the countryside all these years, Luo Ying and I grew up together, sharing a deep bond. Now that we were parting, I had no idea if we would ever meet again. I held her hand and urged her to take good care of herself, promising that I would come back to see her if I had the chance in the future. I also reminded her that the deep mountains were full of wild beasts and advised her to go there less often to gather herbs. She held my hand in return, tears streaming down her face as she agreed. A gentle breeze blew by, and in a daze, I noticed a familiar accessory beneath her outer garment. Just as I was about to step closer for a better look, the maid who was keeping an eye on me grew impatient. She stepped forward and forcibly separated our intertwined hands, leaving me with no choice but to give up. After bidding farewell to the girl next door, I boarded the carriage to the capital under the maid's contemptuous gaze. The carriage jolted and swayed for several hours before arriving at the gate of the Grand Tutor's residence. As the coachman called for a stop, I was jolted awake from my slumber. In a flash of realization, I suddenly remembered what accessory Luo Ying wore close to her person. That accessory was none other than the token Xie Juan had given me in my previous life. After I had saved him, how could it be on Luo Ying? Could Xie Juan still be alive? If I had known, I would have taken the chance to stab him dozens more times. No, I have to go back and check. As soon as I lifted the carriage curtain, a few sturdy maids pulled me down. They call me second miss, but their actions show no respect at all. They even pinched me hard while I struggled. I almost forgot I've already arrived at the Grand Tutor's residence. It seems I won't be able to escape for now, so I'll have to act according to circumstances and investigate Xie Juan's whereabouts. Those rough-handed maids escorted me into the Grand Tutor's residence through a side door. All along the way, I put on a smiling face to coax information out of them. After all, some things have changed because of my rebirth, and I don't know what I'll face upon returning to the Grand Tutor's residence. It's a pity that these people's mouths were sealed as if welded shut with a hot iron. And no information could be extracted from them even when I excused myself by saying I hadn't returned to the mansion for many years and wanted to pay a visit to my father first. They brushed it off lightly. The journey has been exhausting, second young lady. There's no need to rush to see the master. When the master wishes to see you, he will naturally summon you. And so, I was shoved into the remote courtyard where I had lived in my previous life. The maid who had been assigned to watch me had already gone to report back to my elder sister, leaving only a mute maid to attend to me in the previous life. News of Prince's peril had already spread throughout the capital by this time. Strangely, in this life, not even a whisper of it has been revealed. It seems that with my rebirth, many things have quietly begun to change. The next day, before I had even woken up, the door to my bedchamber was kicked open. The person who entered was none other than my elder sister, Su Jining. Seeing me lying drowsily in bed, Su Jining pulled me off the mattress, pinched my chin, and forced me to meet her gaze. Not bad at all. These years of rural life have treated you quite well, haven't they? They've made your little face as lovely as a flower. The more I look, the more you resemble your cheap, early departed mother. My mother was originally the daughter of a schoolteacher. The grand tutor was captivated by her flower-like beauty and forcibly took her as a concubine. Unfortunately, his affection was so shallow that within just a few years, he completely forgot about my mother. The primary wife despised me and, after my mother passed away, sent me off to the countryside estate. The first lady doesn't like me, and her own daughter, Su Jining, naturally doesn't like me either, but she should never, under any circumstances, have slandered my deceased mother. Seeing me glare at her in anger, Su Jining only grew more provoked. She was about to strike me with her soft whip when her personal maid stopped her. "Miss, it's not worth getting angry with her. If you hurt her, I'm afraid it might be hard to explain to Princeton. Your important matter comes first." Mentioning the marriage brought Su Jining back to her senses. She sat upright in her high seat, called two sturdy maids to hold me down, and looked at me with a cold sneer. "To be honest, a lowly common-born daughter like you is unworthy of marrying into the royal household. It's just that I have a kind heart and couldn't bear to see you end up in a poor family, so I pleaded with the prince to grant you the position of a concubine. But one cannot only enjoy blessings without enduring hardships. To prevent a lowly offspring from crawling out of your belly in the future, I, your elder sister, have taken care of it for you in advance." With that, she waved her hand, and a young maid entered carrying a bowl of black liquid. "Don't worry, I've consulted the physician. After drinking this medicine, there won't be any visible injuries, but you will be spared the suffering of bearing children from now on." I never expected her to be so vicious. Even before stepping into the prince's residence, she was already thinking of eliminating me to prevent future troubles. I struggled desperately, but the two women held me down even tighter, forcing me to keep my mouth tightly shut. Su Jining, unable to force the medicine down my throat, pulled a hairpin from her own hair and aimed to stab my mouth. Could it be that after being reborn, I still have to endure her humiliation? What was the point of all my preparations these past days? Just as I closed my eyes and prepared to resign myself to fate, the butler's voice came from the front hall. "Young mistress, second young mistress, there is an imperial decree from the palace. The master has called you to the main hall to receive the decree and express gratitude." To me at this moment, these words were like heavenly music. "Can't it wait a moment? Can't you see I'm busy right now?" the steward said with a bowed head and deferential manner. "Other matters are beyond my control, but by the grace of the imperial family, the eldest and second young ladies must go to receive the decree. Moreover, the master said that this imperial decree might very well be a marriage decree requested by Princeton." Upon hearing that it might be a marriage decree from Princeton, Su Jining finally released me with great joy. No one paid any attention to my disheveled state at that moment, and the steward also turned a blind eye to it, merely gesturing for me to hurry to the main hall to receive the decree. Su Jining completely changed her previous malicious demeanor and, like a gust of wind, threw herself directly into the arms of my father, the grand tutor. "Father, is it that your daughter is about to have her wish come true? I am so delighted. Since my rebirth, This was the first time I had seen my nominal father. He was always stern and unsmiling in front of me, and only when facing Su Jining would he show such a kind, fatherly smile. Father playfully poked Su Jining's nose, calling her mischievous, but when he noticed my presence, he frowned and ended this warm display. Everyone is here now, please. Eunuch, announced the decree. The eunuch unrolled the imperial edict and read aloud, by the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees, the second miss of the Grand Tutor's household, Su Jinyu, graceful and intelligent, quick-witted and talented, is hereby conferred the title of Princess Changning. Additionally, she is granted a separate residence as the princess's manor and 1,000 taels of gold, so it is decreed, second Miss Su. Later, palace attendants will escort you to the palace to express gratitude, then accompany you to your princess's manor. Finally, it has arrived. I knew that saving the emperor would be far more effective than saving that scoundrel Xie Juan. The imperial decree has been issued. I am now a princess officially recorded in the royal registry. My marriage will be decided by the Empress Dowager, and the Grand Tutor's residence can no longer control me. Su Jining glared at me fiercely, her eyes filled with disbelief. I don't believe it, this can't be true. How could that wretched woman become a princess? You must have misread it. She snatched the imperial decree and examined it from every angle, but unfortunately, the decree clearly stated that I was being infeft as a princess. She picked up the imperial edict and tore it, but was stopped by the Grand Tutor. My daughter is young and ignorant. I apologize for the embarrassment in front of you, sir. Please accept these banknotes as a token of my gratitude for your trouble. After seeing off the eunuch who delivered the edict, Su Jining immediately started making a scene with the imperial decree in hand. How is this possible? Shouldn't it be the imperial edict for my marriage to Prince An? How did that lowly woman become a princess? I don't believe it, father. Could you go to the palace and ask why the imperial decree for marriage wasn't for me and Prince An? I sat down nearby, quietly sipping tea. It was only then that my nominal father finally deigned to look at me directly. I underestimated you. All these years in the outskirts of the capital have fueled your ambition, even allowing you to climb your way into the royal family. Likewise, my elder sister, raised under your guidance, also managed to secure her place in the royal family by relying on her own womb, didn't she? Seeing that I still dared to mention her in my words, Su Jining raised her hand to hit me, but this time I did not dodge. Sister, I am now a royal princess, and you have not yet entered the royal mansion. Are you trying to overstep your bounds and show contempt for the royal family? The Grand Tutor was quick-witted. He stopped the weeping Su Jining. Jining's words and actions were improper, and she has offended the princess. I hope the princess will be magnanimous. I couldn't be bothered to deal with them, so I got up and headed toward my own courtyard. Su Jining, unwilling to be outdone, continued to shout after me, Su Jinyu, don't get too full of yourself. One day, when I enter the An manor, I'll be the An princess consort. Even you, a princess, will have to bow to me. What a joke. The An prince is already gone. So what kind of princess consort are you going to be? Alright, I'll wait until you actually marry into the An manor. I'm looking forward to the day you become the An princess consort. With that said, I turned and walked away without looking back, leaving the furious Su Jining behind me. The palace attendants led me to the imperial study just as I had expected. The man in splendid attire I had rescued that day was none other than the current emperor, Xiao Yang. Although I had guessed his identity, I still had to feign surprise. Xiao Yang was quite pleased with my reaction and even personally helped me to my feet. There's no need for such courtesy, Miss Su. You are my savior. I should be the one thanking you. Xiao Yang's captivating peach blossom eyes lowered slightly as he discreetly examined me. That day was urgent, and I didn't get a clear look at your appearance. I never expected Miss Su to possess such extraordinary beauty. Your Majesty flatters me. It is by your divine grace that I have been given this chance to change my fate. Everything I have is bestowed by your Majesty, and I am deeply grateful. Is that so? But I feel that the title of a mere county princess is truly an offense to Miss Su. If Miss Su has any other wishes, I am willing to fulfill them for you now. I glanced at Xiao Yang. and from the look in his eyes, I could guess a little, but I couldn't respond to him, so I had to speak up. Since your majesty is willing to grant me a wish, I will be bold and ask, please bestow upon me some more silver. I am now living independently and do not have enough money to spend. Xiao Yang looked at me deeply, as if he hadn't expected me to make such a request. After a long while, he let out a sigh. I am the son of heaven, and my word is as good as gold. Naturally, I will grant your wish. Since that is the case, I shall bestow upon you another 1,000 taels of gold. However, the money does not come without conditions. In the future, you must visit the palace more often and keep the Empress Dowager company on my behalf at this moment. Xiao Yang had no idea that this decision would later alter the fates of both him and me. Seeing me leave, Xiao Yang's personal eunuch approached him. Since your majesty is fond of the princess, why not issue an edict to summon her into the palace? Why suffer from the pain of longing? Xiao Yang shook his head helplessly and said, I do not wish to force anyone. Since she is unwilling, I will not press her. I still didn't understand Xiao Yang's thoughts, but I felt completely at ease, because this time, I had finally changed my own destiny. This time, no one could dictate my fate. However, at the moment, there was another troublesome matter, that is, whether the token on Luo Ying truly belonged to Xie Juan. To avoid complications, I sent someone to the rural estate that very night to inquire about Xie Juan. However, the person I sent to investigate returned and reported that there was no news of Xie Juan, and Luo Ying had also disappeared. Luo Ying's brother said that during these days, Luo Ying had frequently been taking food and herbs to the cave behind the house, and she had not returned since going there yesterday afternoon. How infuriating! It seems Xie Juan not only survived but was also rescued by Luo Ying. Xie Juan is merely a frail scholar, yet he turned out to be so difficult to kill. His survival poses a great hidden danger. I ordered people to secretly search for the whereabouts of Xie Juan and Luo Ying, without making any noise. The next day, news of Prince An's murder finally reached the capital. Just like in the previous life, the emperor attributed Prince An's death to an encounter with bandits in the outskirts of the capital. Unfortunately, Su Jining was still waiting at the Grand Tutor's residence for the imperial edict of her marriage to Prince An. With this news, who knows what chaos will erupt in the Grand Tutor's residence again. But all of this has nothing to do with me anymore. My men searched the capital for half a month, until the autumn imperial examinations ended this year and the top 3 scholars were announced, but there was still no news of Xie Juan and Luo Ying. Could it be that the two of them left the capital and went elsewhere? I gradually let my guard down. If I had a choice, I would wish to have no further dealings with Xie Juan in this lifetime. Now that he has disappeared, perhaps I should learn to let go. I began to go out and appreciate the beautiful scenery of the capital and enjoy the delicious food here. Just as I was completely relaxing, I met Luo Ying in the capital. Meeting Luo Ying was truly unexpected, but I spotted her at a glance. She was also very happy to see me and walked toward me, holding the medicinal herbs in her hands. Jinyu, I never expected to meet you in the capital. I wanted to find out Xie Juan's whereabouts from her, so I used the pretext of catching up to fish for information. After some questioning, I learned that Xie Juan was truly a man with 9 lives. After being pursued that day, he actually didn't die and managed to survive until the next day. When Luo Ying found him, Luo Ying took care of him in a cave behind her house, and Xie Juan used the same old trick again, promising to marry her someday in return for saving his life, thus winning her heart. What made me most angry was that Luo Ying went into the mountains that day to gather herbs to heal his injuries. Later, I coaxed Luo Ying into going back and gave her some of the herbs, which ultimately ended up being used on Xie Juan. I haven't thanked you yet, Jinyu. If it weren't for the money you left that day, I wouldn't have been able to save Juan with just the herbs from the mountains. Great. The money I left for Luo Ying was also entirely spent on him. This really infuriates me. Once I catch Xie Juan, I'm definitely going to tear him into pieces. I made an excuse to visit Luo Ying's future husband and had her take me to the inn where they were staying. All the way there, I was thinking about how to torment him later, but when I arrived at the inn, I realized that Xie Juan had actually disappeared. How could this be? He was still here when I left. With his leg, He shouldn't have gone out. Luo Ying searched around the house and finally discovered that Xie Juan, along with the token he had given her, had vanished without a trace. I just remembered, Juan mentioned he still has relatives in the capital, and the token is the proof. He must have gone to find his relatives today. I had never heard that Xie Juan had relatives. In my previous life, he was just a poor scholar from the countryside with no parents, and I never heard of him having any relatives. Luo Ying and I waited at the inn for a long time, but there was still no sign of Xie Juan in the end. I used the excuse that the inn environment was not good and took Luo Ying to the Junwang residence. I instructed the innkeeper that if Xie Juan returned, he should be sent to the Junju residence, but as soon as I returned to the princess's residence with Luo Ying, the steward delivered an invitation. It stated that in 3 days, the Grand Tutor's mansion would be marrying off their daughter, and the newlyweds were actually Xie Juan and Su Jining. Well, after all the back and forth, these two still ended up together. Luo Ying was heartbroken upon seeing the invitation, but I stopped her and said I would take her to the Grand Tutor's mansion in 3 days to demand an explanation. 3 days later, the Grand Tutor's residence was decorated with lanterns and colorful banners, and Xie Juan, dressed in wedding robes, stood at the entrance to greet guests. Unlike in his previous life, this time he could only receive guests from a wheelchair, looking somewhat pitiful with just one glance. I knew he had also been reborn. No wonder he had managed to connect with Su Jining so quickly. Despite having no official rank or achievements, Luo Ying began to cry upon seeing Xie Juan, while Xie Juan looked at me with intense resentment, only showing a hint of guilt when his eyes fell on Luo Ying. Do you want to ruin his reputation? If so, my people from the princess's residence will help you stir up trouble immediately. Luo Ying thought for a moment and still shook her head. I believe Juan has his reasons. Later, I want him to explain it to me personally. Indeed, having never seen Xie Juan's true nature, she is a foolish girl just like I was in my previous life. Su Jinning's belly was already quite large, so she had to wear a loose wedding dress to conceal it. After the wedding ceremony, she hurried to the back hall, leaving Xie Juan alone to entertain the guests. Then, someone whispered a few words into Xie Juan's ear, and he also followed to the backyard. Luo Ying had been keeping an eye on Xie Juan all along. When she saw him leave his seat, she immediately followed, worried about her. I also went after them. As soon as I reached the backyard, I saw a man in black kneeling before him, saying something. Upon seeing Luo Ying and me, the man in black immediately vanished. The attire of the man in black felt somewhat familiar to me, but at the moment, I had to focus on Luo Ying and didn't have the mind to dwell on it. Xie Juan said nothing upon seeing me with Luo Ying, only leaving a letter for Luo Ying. Before leaving, he advised me to take care of myself. He had the nerve to say that to me. If Luo Ying hadn't been there, I would have surely killed him. After reading that letter, Luo Ying fell silent, refusing to eat or drink. Only after I repeatedly persuaded her did she reveal the contents of the letter. Xie Juan actually asked her to be his concubine, promising her wealth and prosperity in the future. I knew Xie Juan was heartless, but I never expected him to be so shameless as to ask Luo Ying to be his concubine. I didn't know how to comfort Luo Ying, but I couldn't bear to let her sink into despair like this. Just as I was troubled, Luo Ying actually figured it out on her own. I've figured it out. What kind of person is Xie Juan to deserve having me, your grandmother, as a concubine? To hell with him, I'm not serving him anymore. I had overthought it. Luo Ying was much stronger than I had imagined. She quickly put Xie Juan out of her mind. I just can't understand how the Grand Tutor's legitimate daughter could fall for that cripple of his. Could it be that his relatives are very influential? Luo Ying's words made me ponder deeply. In my previous life, I also found it strange. Why would anyone want to assassinate Xie Juan? A poor scholar. Those assassins seemed highly trained, and the weapons they used felt somewhat familiar to me. But where exactly had I seen them before? That's right. The weapons used by those assassins were exactly the same as those wielded by the black-clad men who accompanied Prince An in the assassination attempt against Xiao Yang. Could it be that Prince An had decided to target Xie Juan? But today in the backyard, I saw a black-clad man reporting something to Xie Juan. And that man's attire was identical to that of Prince's subordinates. Could it be that Prince wanted to kill Xie, but after his death, Xie inherited his secret guards? This is utterly absurd. No. Only one person could inherit Prince's secret guards, and that is Consort Xie. If it's Consort Xie, then everything makes sense. No wonder Xie, despite having no official rank, was able to marry Su Jining. It turns out he had climbed aboard Consort Xie's ship. Both of them share the surname Xie. Could they really be distant relatives? Princess Dowager Xie is an extremely dangerous person. She has always been determined to make Prince ascend the throne. Now that Prince is gone, she has connected with Xie, and now she has also involved the Grand Tutor's residence. It's hard to predict what kind of turmoil will arise next. However, no matter what, this is not a good thing for me. Thinking of this, I picked up my waist token and quietly entered the palace. 3 months later, during the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet, Xiao Yang invited the families of all officials to attend. I brought Luo Ying, dressed in full splendor, with a premonition that something major would happen at this banquet, so I instructed Luo Ying to act according to the situation. After everyone had been seated for quite some time, Consort Xie finally arrived slowly. She was indeed a stunningly beautiful woman. Xie also came this time. Without any official rank, he attended the banquet by virtue of being the son-in-law of the Grand Tutor's household. This time, he wasn't in a wheelchair, but he still walked with a noticeable limp. Upon closer inspection, there were quite a few similarities in the features of Xie and Consort Xie, which made me even more suspicious about their identities. After 3 rounds of drinks, Consort Xie suddenly smashed her cup as a signal, and a group of men in black rushed into the banquet. I quickly shielded Xiao Yang. Though I had long warned him about the suspicious behavior of these two, I wasn't sure if he had taken any precautions against them. Xie limped forward and drained the fine wine from his cup. Didn't expect this, Your Majesty. Even a dragon can find itself trapped in shallow waters, or should I call you Imperial Brother? Consort Xie anxiously rushed forward and pushed Xie. What are you waiting for? Kill him, and the throne will be yours. Why waste words with him? Xie, however, remained unfazed. What's the hurry, Mother Consort? Your son wishes to recount the events of that year in their entirety. As everyone knows, the late emperor doted on Consort Xie. If not for his sudden passing, the imperial throne would never have fallen to the current emperor. The late emperor had long intended for Consort Xie's son to ascend the throne. Unfortunately, my younger brother passed away before any incident could occur. Fortunately, Consort Xie has more than just Prince as her son. I am also Consort Xie's son and am equally qualified to be the emperor. Xie spoke with great passion but failed to notice Consort Xie's increasingly darkened expression as he raised the token in his hand. I, Xie, am the son of Consort Xie and the rightful heir to the throne, he said a lot, but unfortunately, Xiao Yang's expression remained unchanged. When he finished speaking, Xiao Yang took out the late emperor's daily records, and Consort Xie's face turned completely dark. Oh, I checked the late emperor's daily records. Your birthday happened to be the day the late emperor was touring the flooded areas of Jiangnan. At that time, Consort Xie was still at the suburban palace avoiding the summer heat. However, when Consort Xie returned to the palace, a young guard also went missing. From the suburban palace, I went to his hometown to investigate and found a token exactly like the one in your hand. It seems your mother is indeed Consort Xie. But as for your father, no wonder Consort Xie abandoned you among the common people. Consort Xie didn't want to hear any more and immediately ordered her men to step forward and assassinate them. After all, if these people died, no one would know her dark secrets. Meanwhile, Xie stood there frozen in shock. The Grand Tutor's team surrounded Xie and stepped forward to seize Xiao Yang, but I kicked them away. Moments later, the Imperial Guards descended from the sky and rounded up this ragtag group. I knew Xiao Yang wouldn't come unprepared. Consort Xie's rebellion lasted no more than an hour before ending in failure. Xie, Consort Xie, and the entire Grand Tutor's family were imprisoned in the dungeon, awaiting execution. After autumn, the dungeon was cold and damp, and Su Jining also gave birth to a stillborn child there during a difficult labor. I asked Xiao Yang for 10,000 taels of gold again. This time, I wanted to take Luo Ying to see the Jiangnan region. Xiao Yang nodded with a pained expression before leaving. I asked him a question. Why did Prince An want to assassinate Xie Juan? Do you really think it was Prince An? It was consort Xie. Xie Juan was a stain on her life, so as soon as he showed his face, consort Xie arranged for someone to kill him. Unfortunately, the assassination failed. After Prince An died, consort Xie had no one else to rely on, so she thought of Xie Juan and wanted to use him to usurp the throne. Unfortunately, both mother and son were not very bright. They actually thought they could succeed in a rebellion, so that's how it was. Xie Juan had never been treated with genuine sincerity by anyone. The only two people who truly cared for him, he didn't cherish. He truly deserved it. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.